Let's see the reason why Pio is late today.
Greetings, my fellow non-magical mortals. How do you do today?
There it is. Why the wizard hat, Pio?
After my tactical withdrawal against Servo Pio, I decided to learn magic to counter him in our next glorious battle.
Didn't know a synonym for he beat my ass and threw me back in the basement was tactical withdrawal.
Quiet, human, before I use my tremendous powers to silence you.
I'm very curious of these powers now. Show them off.
With great pleasure, I will cast a spell on all of our viewers right now. I cast... manual breathing. And now for the next few minutes they all will have to breathe manually. Magic.
Now, Pio, that's just unjustified evil against our audience.
And when I've ever given the impression I was a good guy? I tried to invade Venezuela, was arrested and went to trial for war crimes, created a dictatorship in Brazil just to be overthrown by a lobotomized and servitorized version of myself, and I am suspected to have committed war crimes in the territory of now former Yugoslavia.
You don't count tax evasion as evidence that you are evil?
That is evidence that I am a gentleman. Taxation is theft.
Consider this, Gregor Eisenhorn. You may deem me a monster beneath contempt, but if I do care, what does that say about me? And what does that say about you? What the... Pio!
Magic! My powers are growing, Danny. I will be unstoppable soon.
I can show you some magic of my own, if you so wish.
Oh yes, more spells to add to my repertoire. Show me.
Ladies and gentlemen, admire how I make Pio disappear.
No.
Now, as usual, before we start, I wanted to thank all the members of our Discord, the members of our Patreon, and the members of the YouTube channel for all their support, be it monetary or even just with the vocal support they give for our videos and content. I am proud to say that many people are enjoying the supporters-only series of Lord Destroyers that you can access by donating at least $5 either to the channel or the Patreon. The videos we are watching are getting... painful, to say the least. Even Pio got angry at some of them.
Granted, the actual short story in the codex is kind of cool. The gal is doing.
It does. Is he talking about the Taurovalia Cash one?
Let's check, because if he's talking about Taurovalia Cash, oh no, yeah, you have not kept up with the recent stuff. So if you did, you will know you cannot teleport a fucking bomb through void shields.
It's cool. Everything about that thing, every single millisecond of that story is wrong.
Everything that happens in that story is literally not lore compliant. By the time you are watching this video, we are already editing the first 4 episodes in a best-of that will be published on YouTube. Mind though, we are taking just some of the best parts of the first 4 episodes. You will only find the full versions on our Patreon or by supporting the YouTube channel with a pledge of at least $5. Now, coming to the video, there is a very important distinction to make before we start. Before people get confused about the content of the video itself. This isn't a video on the story of Gregor Eisenhorn. This video will barely mention the major events of the Eisenhorn trilogy of books. This is a video unique in its kind. And I mean it. We are the first ones to focus mainly on one of the villains of the story of Eisenhorn in an English video on YouTube. This video will focus only on a recurring villain of the Eisenhorn trilogy. His name is Pontius Glaw. So, we will focus mainly on Glaw himself for this video. If the trilogy has events that have nothing to do with Pontius Glaw, they will be skipped. There is already a mountain of videos talking about the story of Eisenhorn. It doesn't need repeating. We will follow the events of the trilogy as they go. Let's start with the first book, Xenos. The story opens on the planet of Hubris in 240 M41. Gregor Eisenhorn was in pursuit of a powerful heretic named Murdin Cyclone, and his investigations have brought him to investigate the ice planet of Hubris. In that period of the year, frozen almost solid, with the ruling elite kept in cryostasis with a good 98% of the planetary population. They would be unfrozen when the hotter part of the year would unfreeze the planet. Once he landed, Eisenhorn would be led by some members of the planetary population, all of them servant of a caste called the Custodians. No, not those custodians. This was a caste of the planetary population charged with overseeing the cryo chambers of the planet during the winter months, and awake the planetary population and the ruling elite of the planet when the hotter season arrived. They would accompany Eisenhorn to what they referred to as Processional 212, a giant hibernation tomb housing 12,142 members of Hubris ruling elite. When Eisenhorn, one member of his retinue named Vibben, and the custodians accompanying them arrived, they found the corpses of 4 other custodians at the entrance. The heretic was here. Once they entered, a fight erupted in the cryotomb against Murdin Iclone and the soldiers that fought for him, usually enslaved people under his own psychic control. Both Iclone and Eisenhorn were psychers, and while Vibben and Eisenhorn were killing the followers of Iclone, both him and Eisenhorn were engaging in a mind battle for control over one another. The battle was brutal and unrelenting. In the middle of it, the awakening process for the tomb started for all of its over 12,000 members. Half unfrozen people coming out of their cryotombs only to be killed in the middle of the battle by the crossfire. Not that it mattered. Without the proper recovery and medical crews, the cryo-awakening shock would have killed them anyway. Eisenhorn would end up killing Iclone at the top of the tomb, where he and his few surviving allies were trying to escape. Vibben, unfortunately, was killed in the battle inside the complex. As it will later be confirmed, all occupants of Processional 212 perished for the aftershock of being unfrozen with no medical attention. And as we will learn during the story of Xenos, all of this was Pontius Glaw and his family's doing. In the tomb would also be found, connected to its main systems, a strange box, visibly constructed of forbidden technology. Neither Eisenhorn nor his servants would understand what it was for at this point, but they noticed that a piece of it was missing. Keep this in mind because it will be important later. Their investigations, as well as their involvement with the death of over 12,000 members of Hubris ruling elite, brought Eisenhorn and his crew at the Sun Dome, the current headquarters of all the awake planetary population of the planet, where he had some explanations to give about the events that transpired at Processional 212. Now, long story short, investigations, politicking, and even a shootout with some more servants of Iclone discovered in the dome would bring 2 developments to the story. The first was that Eisenhorn would recruit in his retinue Elizabeth Bekin, a night woman at the time, but skilled fighter and unknowingly to her, a blank, a soulless pariah immune to psychic powers. She will be instrumental in many events going forward, and she even has her own novel series aptly named Bekin, but especially in their investigations they will become aware of one name, that by that point they had never heard before. It is here they will become aware of the name, De Pontius. No, not that Pontius!
My Vox link chimed in my ear. It was Betancourt.
Ever hear of a thing called the Pontius?
No, why?
I haven't either, but Lowink's cracking some of the old transcripts. In the weeks before Iclone arrived, someone was sending messages of the approved links to a location in the Sundome. They talk about the delivery of the Pontius. It's all rather vague and indirect.
Strangely enough though, the so-called Pontius has never arrived on the planet itself. From the Sun Dome they will start to investigate this name and find thousands and thousands of results, until a revelation came upon Eisenhorn.
What about the definite article?
I have over 9,000 marks with that connection.
He sighed. He began to read them from his late list.
The Pontius Whirlwind Youth Academy, the Pontius Praxiteles Translation Bureau, the Pontius Gavin Ropus Investment Financiary, the Pontius Spiegel Microsurgical Hospital.
Enough! I sat at the codifier, typing in name groups. Flickering runes hunted and darted across the viewplate. Text extracts drifted into focus. I searched through them by eye, my finger resting on the scroll bar. Pontius Glaw, I said. He blinked and looked at me. There was a half smile of scholarly delight on his narrow face.
Not on my list.
Because he's dead.
Because he's dead.
Amos came over and looked across my shoulder at the screen.
But it makes sort of sense.
It did. A kind of illogic that had the flavor of truth. The sort of spore an Inquisitor gets a nose for after a few years. The Glaw family was old blood, a thrusting noble dynasty that had been a main player in this subsector for almost a millennium. Their primary familial holdings and estates were on Gudrun, a world that had already come to our attention. House Glaw was also a major shareholder and investor in the regal bonded merchant guild of Synesius, so the codifier had just revealed to me. Pontius Glaw, I murmured.
But who is this Pontius Glaw? Pontius Glaw, by this point of the story, had been dead for more than 200 years. 212 to be precise. The seventh son of Oberon Glaw, one of the great patriarchs of the Glaw line, he has suffered the fate of most junior siblings of noble families, in that there had been precious little for him to inherit once his older brothers had taken their part. His eldest brother, another Oberon, the Glaw family doesn't really have much imagination for original names, had become the lord of the entire house. The second eldest had been gifted the control of the stock holdings of the family, the third had become the captain of the house militias, the fourth and fifth had married politically and became high-level members of the administratum, and so the line continues. Pontius instead had become a dilettante, wasting his life, his robust virility, charisma, and finally educated intellect in all manners of worthless pursuit. He had gambled away a significant measure of his personal fortune, then rebuilt it on the revenues of slave trading and pit fighting. A ruthless sliver of brutality stained his records. And then, in his 40s, with his health ruined by years of abuse, he turned to a much darker path. It is suspected some kind of chaos-tainted artifact or document fell in his hands, and he became corrupted by chaos. It was documented that he was a lifelong collector of rare and often prohibited books, but nobody knows exactly when he became corrupted by the blasphemous powers of chaos. Pontius Glaw embraced his nature and became a disciple of chaos. He drew a coven around him, and over a period of 15 years committed unspeakable and increasingly brazen acts of evil. Eventually, he was slain, his coven along with him. If we believe the date given in the books of when he died in the year 28 of M41. He died on Lamsaroth, killed by an inquisitorial purge led by the great Absalom Angevin. House Glaw, his own family, participated in the overthrow, desperate to be seen to distance themselves from his crimes. It is likely this alone prevented his entire family from being pulled down with him. Pontius Glaw was a notorious and dangerous monster, but he was, strangely enough, a dead one. And yet Eisenhorn couldn't shake the feeling that he had something to do with the work of iClone. This connection alone would draw Eisenhorn to move to Gudrun, the planet where currently the Glaw family resided in their estates and holdings. They were a noble family after all. After days of investigation and infiltration, Eisenhorn would be confronted by another Inquisitor on Gudrun, the legendary and ruthless Inquisitor known as Commodus Vok. He was part of the retinue of Absalom Angevin at the times of Pontius Glaw, and he was with his master when they undertook the purge that killed him. But something extremely interesting would arise as to the reason the two Inquisitors found themselves on the planet.
We need to share more information, Inquisitor. I'll take a guess and say your investigation somehow involves the Glaw family. Vok said nothing and showed no response, but I felt his assistant tense psychically behind me. Our work is indeed clashing, I went on. I too am interested in House Glaw. In short, simple terms, I laid out the matter of iClone's activities in Hubris, and drew the connection to Glaw and Gudrun by way of the mysterious Pontius. I had his interest now.
Pontius is just a name, Eisenhorn. Pontius Glaw, on the other hand, is long dead. I served with worthy Angevin in the purge that destroyed him. I saw his corpse.
Yet here you are, investigating the Glaws anyway. He exhaled slowly, as if making his mind up.
After Pontius Glaw's eradication, the House of Glaw made great efforts to distance itself from his heresy. But Angevin, rest his immortal soul, always suspected that the taint ran deeper, and that the family was not free of corruption. It is an ancient house and powerful. It is difficult to probe its secrets, but from time to time, over the past 200 years, I have turned my eye to them. 15 months ago, prosecuting a coven on Seder 7th, I uncovered traces which suggested that particular coven and several other minor groups were collectively being run by an all but invisible parent cult. A cult of great scope and power, old and hidden, stretching across many worlds. Some traces led to Gudrun. That Gudrun is the Glaw's ancestral home was for me too much of a coincidence.
The two Inquisitors decided to collaborate in their investigation, and Eisenhorn and his retinue were already at work to infiltrate the Glaw estate, masquerading as off-world traders of genetically modified grains and crops. They will manage to infiltrate the Glaw estate, and at night, Eisenhorn would equip himself to stealthily move around the mansion, as his retinue had discovered hidden tunnels under the villa, with entrances only in private parts of it, where they were denied access. He would sneak around in the tunnels and use knowledge he had acquired during the investigation to enter in the hidden basement of the Glaw estate. There, after sneaking around some more, and even knocking out another guest of the Glaw estate, he would find in what was pretty much an hidden and shielded vault a strange orb, pulsating with energy. This orb was indeed the Pontius, a chaos artifact, an orb that contained the essence and soul of Pontius Glaw, and all his debased knowledge. Pontius Glaw was still alive, and he was psychically powerful enough to knock out Eisenhorn with a psychic flare, sending him down unconscious.
He tried to ponder the orb, but instead it was the orb pondering him.
Eisenhorn will be captured and tortured by the Glaw family and their allies, and then him and his retinue will be sent in the arena to fight and die for their entertainment against old beasts of the Gudrun wilderness. As they were fighting for their life though, and as Eisenhorn forced one of the beasts to jump out of the arena by snapping the chain that kept it inside, an assault will descend on the estate by none other than Inquisitor Commodus Voke, and the reinforcements he had requisitioned. The retinue of Eisenhorn having warned him that Eisenhorn had disappeared with no contact after leaving to explore the hidden parts of the house hours before, and was not accounted for. The Glaws will be confirmed as all corrupted by chaos. Only one member of their family was captured though. The rest were believed dead in the transport ships that had been shot down after the attack had started. As we will discover later, all of the Glaws and their allies were indeed still alive. The investigations after Eisenhorn recovered still moved forward. The Pontius itself was not found. The Inquisition investigated their prisoner, the noble Urizel Glaw, but his resistance to talking raised more alarms than if he had answered the questions. If he didn't consider his family finished by this point, something else was going on. Eisenhorn will question why the actions of iClone had led to nothing. What was the missing piece of the strange box they had found? As he would discern, the missing piece in that strange box was the Pontius itself, but the Glaw family had not delivered him. They had cancelled their efforts on Hubris at the last moment. Urizel simply answered to this, as gleeful as ever in his resistance, was that a true matter had arisen that was more important than whatever was going on with iClone. And this true matter was so important that the entire system they were in was erupting with conflict. Chaos forces had started rising after the attack on the Glaw estate. Hidden cults appeared, thousands of members on various planets, and started slaughtering people mindlessly. Traitors in the Navy started creating false alarms and false flag attacks in the fleets above the worlds. Entire hive cities erupted into rebellion. It was a true and violent chaos uprising. But as Eisenhorn had divined, it was all a distraction. But he yet didn't know for what. The investigation led Eisenhorn to the planet of Damask, an inhospitable world filled with strange flora and fauna. Now, the events here are very long too, but let's condense them a bit for the sake of the explanation. On this planet we find out not only that the Glaws and their allies are indeed very much alive and breeding.
The Imperium is worse at killing members of the Glaw family than I am at conquering countries. It's actually pretty incredible.
But also that their allies don't stop at heretics and conspirators, but to full-blown Chaos Marines of the Emperor's children. One of them guarding the work they were doing on the planet. The Glaws were working on Damask to extract what seemed old Xenos relic from underground, enslaving the planetary population to do so. Now, at some point the retinue of Eisenhorn would be discovered and a battle would erupt. Eisenhorn was forced to flee the planet, but not before, and I swear to you, I'm not kidding, stealing the Pontius from Oberon Glow's luggage. He stored the fucking Pontius hidden under clothes. Oberon Glaw might carry the name of his legendary ancestor, but certainly has a quarter of the fucking brain cells. There was really no safer place than your socks and underwear trunk, Oberon! After fleeing, barely, from the planet with his life, Eisenhorn will divine the direction of the Glaw traitor fleet that left too a few days later, jumping in the warp towards the uncharted and prohibited territory of an alien race known as the Saruti. The travel to chase them, as Eisenhorn called for Inquisitorial reinforcements, will take various weeks, and it is here that finally we get the first interaction between Gregor Eisenhorn and Pontius Glaw.
There was a faint crackling sound, like the gentle crisping of paper in flames. It spread, growing louder. Frost was forming on the casket, on the floor around it, spreading out across the hole's decking, up the walls, across the ceiling. A glittering thickness of diamond frost coated the interior of the hold in less than 10 seconds. Our breath steamed in the air and we brushed jewels of ice dust off our clothes and eyelashes. "Pontius Glaw," I said. There was no answer. But after a moment or two, a series of animal grunts and barks mewed from the box speakers built into the casket. "Glaw," I repeated.
"What?"
said an artificial voice. Bequin stiffened.
"What have you woken me to?"
What is the last thing you remember, Glaw?
Promises! Promises!
The voice said, coming and going as if drifting away from the microphone and then back.
Where is Uricel?
What promises were made to you, Glaw?
Life.
It murmured.
Where is Uricel?
There was a tone now, an anger or an impatience.
Where is he?
I began to frame another question, but there was a sudden flash of activity, a crackle of electronic synapses firing across the crystal surface of the ball. It had lashed out with its mind, with its potent psychic powers. If Bequin and I had not been here, cancelling it out, no doubt Amos and I would have been dead. Temper, I said. I took a step towards the casket. I am Eisenhorn, Imperial Inquisitor. You are my prisoner and you only enjoy cognitive function because I allow it. You will answer my questions.
I will not.
I shrugged. Amos, disconnect this menace and prepare it for disintegration.
Wait!
The voice was pleading despite its colorless artificiality. I knelt down in front of the casket. I know that your life and intellect were preserved in this device, Pontius Glaw. I know you have waited for 2 centuries, trapped in a bodiless state, desperate to be made whole again. That is what your family promised you, wasn't it?
Uricel promised. He said it'd be so the methods were prepared.
To sacrifice the nobility of hubris so that their life energies might be siphoned off into you through this casket. To give you the power to create a body for yourself.
He promised!
The stress fell on the second word, anguished and deep. Uricel and the others abandoned you, Pontius. They abandoned the hubris project at the last minute in favor of something else. They are now all in the custody of the Inquisition.
No!
The word turned into a hiss that died away.
They will not!
I am sure they wouldn't. Unless it was something so vital, so unmissable that they had no choice. You'd know what that would be, wouldn't you? Silence. What will be more important to them than you, Pontius Glaw? Silence. Pontius.
They are not caught.
What? Who are not?
My brethren, my kin. If you had them, you would not be asking these questions. They are free, and you are desperate.
Not at all. You know how it is. So many lies, so many conflicting stories. Your pitiful family trying to sell each other out in exchange for freedom. I came to you for the truth.
No. Credible, but no.
You know what it is, Pontius.
No.
You know what it is. They walk you from time to time to keep you informed. Walk you from the oblivion that surrounds you in that globe. Beneath House Glaw, for example, in that chapel they built to contain you. I saw you there. You subdued me with your power.
I will do so again.
It said, traces of fire once more flickering along the golden filaments and woven circuits that encased the jagged, quartz-like lamp. You know what it is. They told you.
No!
I reached down and grasped a sheaf of wires. You are lying, I said and yanked the wires out. A brief moan rolled from the Vox speakers and faded. The lights on the casket went out. Air temperature and pressure began to climb again. The frost began to dissolve.
Eisenhorn should have asked him to let him ponder some Xenos pornography. I'm sure Glaw would have complied.
Magos Daryl breaks a lot of orbs by doing that.
What? Oh, for the love of... Magos Daryl!
Yeah?
Have you been pondering Xenos pornography on the tech orb again?
No, that wasn't me.
You always do this! You
No,
always
it
go
wasn't
to the
me.
websites
No,
and
no,
break the
no,
tech
it
orbs!
wasn't
It's
me.
fucking bullshit!
Now, Pontius Glaw is an extremely intelligent individual. For being an heretic, at least. Eisenhorn will go on to interrogate him daily for the entire 30 weeks of the travel. But it was a battle of wits, and the two were evenly matched. Eisenhorn will learn nothing. It is here that he will instruct Bekin to fake being a traitor in Eisenhorn's retinue, going to meet Pontius Glaw in secret, and amusing him with stories of imperial tragedies and defeats. Until she asked him to reveal what his family was after. And after some deliberation, he did. Pontius Glaw confirmed his family was going in Saruti territory to trade with them, and buy from them a copy of a precious and very dangerous artifact. A copy of the abominable work named the Necrotheok. A chaos tome containing unimaginable secrets and knowledge, and that was thought destroyed long before. Pontius Glaw and his family were fomenting chaos cults everywhere. They killed 12,000 nobles only to have enough energy to have Pontius create a body for himself, and cancelled that endeavor only when they established contact with the Saruti, wanting to trade their ancient artifacts for the Necrotheok. This is the kind of monsters they were, all following Pontius Glaw in their corruption. Now, the rest of the story is extremely complicated, but gladly unrelated with Pontius Glaw. Eisenhorn will follow the Glaw fleet in Saruti territory, and enter a pocket dimension created by these corrupted Xenos, corrupted by the Necrotheok. Collaborating with loyalists of the guard that were tricked by the Glaw family to follow them in Saruti territory, Eisenhorn and his retinue would interrupt the deal between the Glaw family and the Saruti, killing them, and killing the Glaw family once and for all with many of its allies, destroying the copy of the Necrotheok that they had brought to be traded. From interrogating the only survivor of the Glaw allies, that had already almost been killed by another Inquisitor that had flayed him alive to try and extract info from him, they learned that another copy of the Necrotheok existed, on the home planet of the Saruti. The last surviving members of the Glaw retinue were now moving with Chaos Marines of Zelanesh to assault the world to retrieve it. Eisenhorn, various Inquisitors, including a Lord Inquisitor named Phlebas Alessandro Rorken, and various Astartes of the Death Watch will join Eisenhorn on his assault on the world, battling Heretics and Chaos Marines to find the last copy of that damned book. In doing so, when Eisenhorn found it, he found out that another Inquisitor was in secret an heretic. The extremist radical Inquisitor Conrad Molitor wanted the Necrotheok for himself, to learn his secrets. The two will battle in the ruins of the Saruti capital for the Necrotheok and the Polyhedron, a primer to read the Necrotheok in the strange Saruti language. The copy was useless without it, as it was impossible to translate. They will battle, and Eisenhorn will kill the Inquisitor, and find out that a member of his retinue was a demon host. It is here that Eisenhorn will come into contact for the first time with Kerubael, a recurring villain in the trilogy covering the story of Eisenhorn. In the end though, Eisenhorn will be victorious. He will destroy the primer and the Necrotheok became useless, before it too was destroyed. They managed to escape the planet minutes before it was completely annihilated, as it was already being subjected to exterminatus as Eisenhorn was battling the Rogue Inquisitor. Eisenhorn will keep with himself the Pontius, and his presence will become a constant in the story of the Inquisitor, and it is from here that we move to the second book of the trilogy, Malleus. Unfortunately, the second book is also the one that has the least involvement by Pontius Glaw. In fact, out of a 23 chapters book, Pontius Glaw appears in chapter 20 and stays just for a couple of chapters. Not that his involvement in the story is diminished in any way, it's just that he's not there much in this book.
He's literally a glass ball. Did he have something better to do?
We will go through the general parts of the story of Malleus, but focus mostly on the parts where Pontius Glaw is actually in, as the second book doesn't focus on him that much. The main story of the book starts officially in 338 and 41, on the planet of Lete 11. There, Eisenhorn and his team bring down a xenophile cult leader known as Beldame Sadia. Eisenhorn himself would almost be killed in the raid, and several of his retinue will be slain. Between them was also Arian Rhodes Swadir, at the time the lover of another very famous Inquisitor in 40k, Gideon Ravenor, which held the rank of interrogator under Eisenhorn as an apprentice. As Eisenhorn and his team were recovering from their wounds after the elimination of Beldame Sadia, they were recalled back on Trajan Primaris to attend an event called the Holy Novena, pretty much a party in a parade in honor of the successful and concluded Ophidian campaign. There, Eisenhorn will be informed by an old friend and fellow Inquisitor known as Titus Endor. No, not that Titus! That dark voices were going around the name of Eisenhorn. From inside the Inquisition himself, he was being suspected of being corrupted, but nothing formal had happened yet. So, Eisenhorn went on with his duties as the parade was prepared, and then took place. During the novena, Eisenhorn became struck by a sense of foreboding while paying homages to the tomb of an old friend, stopping in front of it during the parade, as various Inquisitors were part of it. It is then that a pass by a squad of lightning fighters turns into a disaster when some of the aircrafts crash directly into the procession. Those of the same squad that had survived then turned, and started firing against the Imperial Guard, Marines, and generally the people taking part in the parade, strafing as they ramaged the packed masses with fire, killing thousands every pass. In the chaos, 33 high-level Chaos Psykers, including some alpha-level Psykers in their midst, that were being paraded by the War Master as captured prisoner taken during the Crusade like trophies, managed to free themselves, and the entire city turned from complete chaos into a battlefield. It is during these events that Inquisitor Ravenor will be grievously wounded and left paralyzed completely. All the surviving Inquisitors, including an old friend like Commodus Voke and others, will team up with the Imperial Guard and Space Marines in the Hive City, and an hunt for all the Chaos Psykers started. The most powerful ones behaved almost like gods, controlling hundreds of innocent citizens like meat puppets, and throwing them against loyalist forces without any kind of remorse, having them cut down just to keep them at bay. In the end, some will be recaptured, the majority killed. One in particular though, alpha-level Chaos Psyker Esaradon was cornered by a team of Inquisitors, Marines and Arbites, with the participation of Eisenhorn himself. After a violent battle in a noble mansion he had taken refuge in, Esaradon was incinerated by Inquisitor Lyko. But examinations after the events undertaken by an interrogator, known as Ishbael, that had lost his own Inquisitor during the fighting against Esaradon, proved to him that whoever Lyko had incinerated in the battle was not Esaradon. Eisenhorn will take Ishbael under his wing for future events. Unfortunately, before they could question Lyko further, he had fled the planet. His own estate on Trajan Primaris left empty and abandoned. It is from here that Eisenhorn will decide to follow him, concerned that he might be working with Esaradon himself.
We have seen more Chaos-inclined Inquisitors until now than Chaos Marines. It's pretty weird.
They will follow Lyko to a planet known as Ekan. Long story short, it was a trap. Lyko had indeed taken Esaradon, but he had done so not for himself, but for even higher forces. Especially when during an auction for the Psyker undertaken by a crime boss of the planet, Kerubael appeared again. A battle would ensue, and Eisenhorn would almost be killed numerous times. Not by Kerubael himself though, strangely enough. As Lyko was cornered in one of the harvester machines of the planet, as Eisenhorn is trying to interrogate him, Lyko will be killed and incinerated by Kerubael, that then teleported away with Esaradon. At this point, the investigation will move to Cadia, where a cult will be discovered and isolated as probably being working with Kerubael and whoever his master is. Here they will collaborate with the local Inquisitor General, Niv. An investigation with the help of the Inquisitor will link them to a name of an high-ranking Inquisitor that seemed to be at the center of this Chaos cult and all of these demon host apparitions. The name of Inquisitor Quixos, a venerated Inquisitor of the Ordo Malleus. The problem was that Inquisitor Quixos was long considered dead, but his death had never been confirmed. The cult will spring up again on Cadia near one of the Blackstone pylons. This cult seemed to be interested just in measuring the pylons, but nobody could understand why. Eisenhorn, Niv, the Retinues, and a force of Cadian Karskins would intercept the cult in the hopes of capturing and interrogating their members. But as they got close to arrest them, one of them revealed to be another demon host, this one named Profaniti. A violent battle ensued, and Eisenhorn will manage to destroy the body of Profaniti. But the demon host will just possess the body of one of the members of Eisenhorn's retinue, Husman, before vanishing away. It is here that Eisenhorn will be arrested for heresy by another arriving Inquisitor of the Ordo Malleus, Leonid Ozma. Ozma would arrest Eisenhorn specifically for crimes against the Imperium of Men. He would imprison Eisenhorn on Cadia and question him for 3 full months, but he had already made up his mind. Eisenhorn will be tried, and then he will burn. Eisenhorn's retinue managed to break him out of prison and they went on the run. They tried to fake Eisenhorn's death, but the results weren't what they hoped, and now all of them were enemies of the Imperium of Men, actively being hunted. While on the run, they would reach the planet of Cinchare, a planet suffering in strange gravitational fields that made it an optimal territory for mining rare metals for the Imperium's industries. Under fake identities, they would come down on the mining station of the planet, but strangely, it seemed deserted. Now, here a lot of stuff happens, but I'll make it short because it has nothing to do directly with either Eisenhorn nor Pontius Glaw. To make it simple, Eisenhorn was looking for an old acquaintance of him, Magos Geard Bure. After realizing the few people they had found in the mining station were indeed hostile, and they were lying to Eisenhorn and his retinue to keep them away from the mines themselves, the group would end up engaging them in a fight and then escaping the mines themselves looking for Bure. That Eisenhorn believed, having found some proof of communication in the Mechanicus abandoned sanctum, was still down there, and alive. They found him in a very advanced and powerful digging machine. There, Bure would explain to them that the miners 3 months earlier had found an object known as the Lit, a sentient and very powerful geode that seemed alive with chaos energies. The geode had contaminated all of Cinchare's population, and Bure was looking for it to destroy it. Eisenhorn would help Bure fight off some cultists, but they were being overwhelmed by a strange abomination of flesh that was fighting against the digging machine. Eisenhorn went off on his own with Medea, his pilot, and after fighting some more cultists trying to stop them, found the lit. It was indeed emitting chaos energies, and Eisenhorn could feel it trying to corrupt his mind from within. He managed to slay it by countering it with vox-amplified Imperial prayers, pretty much emitting them at sonic volumes against the lit, and after a while, that did the trick. The lit died, and the cultist it was controlling collapsed with it.
Wait, a chaos artifact emitting energies so powerful to corrupt an entire mining station in a few months was killed by the equivalent of a surround amplified Imperial prayer?
Yes, that seemed to do the trick.
We should just have the Grey Knights carry speakers around on their backpacks to the sonic level prayers. Chaos will be doomed.
It is here that it will be revealed why Eisenhorn had come here looking for Bure. You see, a century before, after the events involving the Saruti and the Glaw family, Eisenhorn hadn't destroyed the Pontius, nor given it to the Inquisition. He had entrusted it to Bure, and he had kept it and studied it for 100 years. And the Pontius, in fact, was on Cinchare, in the same inner sanctum Eisenhorn had visited to find traces of Bure. Bure opened the armored walls of a shielded room, and then left Eisenhorn alone as he went in.
Hello, Eisenhorn.
Said a hollow vox-projected voice. It came from a casket that squatted on a basalt block in the center of the room. Both casket and stone were caked in ice. Tiny lights darted and blinked inside the casket's open lid. I prepared myself, then replied, Pontius Glaw, we meet again.
Eisenhorn had not come here for a reunion with an old friend, however. He very much still despised Pontius Glaw, but unfortunately he was the only one he could turn to for help. Yes, you heard me right. Eisenhorn came here to ask Pontius Glaw for help.
Let me make sure I understand you, Eisenhorn,
said the disembodied voice of Pontius Glaw, slowly and contemptuously.
You think I am going to help you?
I cleared my throat. Yes. Pontius laughed. Synapse leads connected to the gold circuits of his engram sphere flashed in Seriers.
I didn't think a man of such studied dullness and sobriety as you would have the ability to surprise me, Eisenhorn. My mistake.
You will help me, I said quietly but emphatically. I brushed frost from the grilled steps and sat down facing his casket. It was claw-footed, rectangular, compact, and filled with complex technology designed for one purpose: the support and operation of the engram sphere, a rough-cut nugget the size of a clenched fist in which resided the intellect, and perhaps the soul, of one of the most notorious heretics in the Imperium. Pontius Glaw, dead in body for nigh on 300 years, had been in his physical life one of the more unwholesome products of the powerful Glaw dynasty. That family line, part of the high nobility of Gudrun, had whelped many heretics in its time, the last of whom had been instrumental in the affair of the Necrotheok. Supported by the considerable efforts of Imperial Navy security, I had all but crushed their poisonous lineage, and in the process had captured the engram sphere of Pontius Glaw. His family and their minions had attempted to sacrifice thousands of innocents in order to restore him to physicality. That too I had denied. Once the affair had ended, I had been left with his casket full of heretical spite. In terms of technology alone, it was a wonder, and there was no telling what secrets the Pontius might have in it. So instead of destroying it, I had passed it into the safekeeping of Magus-geared Bure. Bure, I knew, would have the time and skill enough to unlock its technical marvels at least. And he was trustworthy. But from time to time in that past 100 years, I had questioned the validity of that decision. In all honesty, I should have surrendered the Pontius to the Horde Hereticus for examination and disposal. The fact that I hadn't sometimes played on my conscience, for it suggested deceit and unwholesome subterfuge on my part. In the light of events in the past year, I found myself fighting back the notion that perhaps my accusers were right. Had it been the act of an unsound man to secret away such a radical entity?
Eisenhorn had to turn to Pontius for information on certain proscribed knowledge. We will learn later that he wanted information on how to vanquish Demon Host from reality. And obviously Pontius would have that lore.
I mean, have you checked our YouTube channel? We have all the lore.
Pontius would almost mock the Inquisitor, but something he said would echo in the mind of Eisenhorn for the decades to come. Pontius said that this is how it starts, crossing the line from loyalist to heretic. And at one point even Eisenhorn would reach that line and cross it. Here it is also where we get more insight on how Pontius Glaw fell to chaos. It happened in 019 and 41. It was a very bad year for the Imperium. High Lords being assassinated, talks of civil wars, famines, rebellions. Pontius was on Quintus 8, buying slave fighters for his pit games. He was around 25 years old. One of the pit marshals selling fighters advised Pontius to buy a fighter, a tanned man from the feral world of Borea. His name was AAA.
Ah, are you serious?
I am not making this up. I swear on the holy tomboy herself, Anna, from the Macarian Crusade trilogy.
What did Abnet smoke to give him that name?
Anyway, after a comment that shows the very dubious taste of Pontius Glaw,
His name was which meant in his tongue, sword cuts meat for women prizes. Isn't that lovely? If I had ever sired a son, a human one I mean, I would have called him Glaw. Quite a ring to it, huh?
we will learn that this man, which was a savage in his own right, was indeed bought by Pontius Glaw, and he won entire fortunes for Pontius Glaw as a pit fighter. The two seem to share a kinship, even if AAA didn't have a real language to speak with. When Glaw bought him, the man offered him his only possession, his Tor, as a gift. A Tor is pretty much an amulet, a necklace, if anybody is wondering. When Glaw examined the Tor, he found out that it was inlaid with astonishing technology. And it was indeed touched by chaos. Chaos that the Tor would focus in the wearer's mind once worn. Glaw wore it, and after a few hours, it was completely enslaved to chaos.
It was wonderful, liberating. I was alive to the real universe at last! I had crossed the line and it was bliss. Suddenly, I saw everything as it actually was, not as the Ministorum and the rot-hearted Emperor wanted to see it. Engulfing eternity. The fragility of the human race, the glories of the warp, the fleeting treasure of flesh, the incomparable sweetness of death, all of it!
And you cease to be Pontius Glaw, the seventh son of a respectable imperial house, and became Pontius Glaw, the sadistic adulator and abomination.
A boy's got to have a hobby.
I agree with his comment that everyone needs an hobby. Mine is evading taxes.
Eisenhorn will meet with Pontius various times during his stay on the planet, and in the end, the two will strike a deal. Pontius was tired of his isolation and the senseless life he lived in the orb. Eisenhorn offered him what he craved the most. If Pontius held him with the knowledge he needed, Eisenhorn would have Magos Bure build him a body.
I turned the glass in my hands, willing the ember spirit around. Magos Bure is a talented man, a master of machinery. Though I will never release you from imprisonment, I could perhaps ask him for a favor.
A favor?
Pontius echoed with trembling anticipation. A body for you, a servitor chassis, the ability to walk, reach, hold, see. Perhaps even the finessing extras of sense actuators, rudimentary touch, smell, taste. That would be child's play for him.
Gods of the warp,
he whispered.
Pontius would agree, and start giving him the info he needed. Eisenhorn will keep visiting Pontius over the following days, and then go back to work with Bure to build a new weapon, a rune staff. The main gem to focus the psychic powers of Eisenhorn fashioned like his own skull, and made from the material recovered from the now dead Lit. After the preparations were made, and the weapons Eisenhorn had asked Bure to produce were ready, he will visit Pontius for the last time in the second book.
We will be leaving in a few days. I will miss our conversations, Eisenhorn. Nevertheless, I have to go. You really think you're ready? I think this part of my readiness is complete. Is there anything else you can tell me? I have been wondering that. I cannot think of anything. Except what? Except this. Apart from everything you've learned from me, the secrets, the lore, the mysteries, you must know that going after this foe is dangerous. I think I've worked that much out already, Pontius. No, you don't know what I mean. You have the determination, I know. The ambition, I know that too. You have the knowledge, we assume, and the weapons too, we hope. But unless your mind is prepared, you will perish instantly. And no ward or staff or rune will save you.
You sound like you care if I lose.
Do I? Then consider this, Gregor Eisenhorn. You may deem me a monster beneath contempt, but if I do care, what does that say about me? Or you?
Goodbye, Pontius Glaw.
However, for all the hate Eisenhorn had for Pontius Glaw, even in this part of his story you can already see him falling in more radical thoughts.
I will record this thought now, because I feel I must. For all that Pontius Glaw was, and for all that came later, I cannot shake my bond to him, though I try. There, in the Saloncine chair, and a century before in the dim hold of the Essene, we had spoken together for hundreds of hours. I had no doubt that he was an unforgivably evil thing, and that he would have killed me in a second during those times had he been allowed the chance. But he was being of extraordinary intellect, wit and learning, admirable in so many strange ways. But for that tour, our tour, back on that spring day on Quinthus, his life may have been different. And if it had been different, and we had met, we would have been the greatest of friends.
For the rest of the events of the book, as usual, I suggest reading the trilogy yourself. But to give a brief recount, Eisenhorn will mobilize his forces and the few remaining allies at his side, mainly Inquisitors he was friends with, to meet on the planet of Thessalon. He will meet with Titus Endor, Commodus Voke, Raum Gramman, and Massimo Ricci, the last two envoys of other Inquisitors that couldn't come help Eisenhorn, and were sent in the stead of their lords that trusted the judgment of Gregor. Gramman came in place of Inquisitor Niv from Cadia. Ricci was here in the stead of Lord Rorken, the commander of the Ordo Xenos in the Helican territory. The Inquisitors would agree to help Eisenhorn and organize their forces to assault the base of Quixos, that Ravenor had determined, through investigation in the production of a replica pylon from Cadia, being the planet of Fairness Beta, at the very edge of the Eye of Terror. The attack will be brutal, the resistance even more brutal. Various of the Inquisitors will die, including the legendary Commodus Voke, when the group had to face at the same time both Kerubael and Profaniti. It is here that we learn that the plan of Kerubael was to have Eisenhorn banish him, and free him from the clutches and control of Inquisitor Quixos. Eisenhorn will banish him, and destroy Profaniti completely, not before Profaniti had killed Voke, however. It is at this point that the Inquisitors would enter the main base of Quixos. There they will discover the replica pylon and the high-level psychers that the Inquisition had lost, bound to the replica of the pylon. Quixos wanted to use them and the chaos powers he was wielding to collapse the Eye of Terror upon itself and close it. Quixos appeared like a blur. So fast he killed both Massimo Ricci and Gramman. Massimo was split open down the length of his spine. Gramman was decapitated. All of this at an extreme velocity. It is then that Inquisitor Eisenhorn would engage the Chaos-corrupted Inquisitor in a duel. A brutal duel, where both use the maximum of the physical and psychic abilities against each other. In the end, a single blow from the consecrated sword of Eisenhorn will pierce the chest and armor of Quixos, piercing his heart directly. The last words of the heretic Inquisitor as he fell down and turned into dust were a psychic scream declaring Eisenhorn an heretic. Eisenhorn was reinstated in the eyes of the Inquisition, but he stole a book from the base of Quixos before the Inquisition could claim it in a raid. The Malus Codicium, a chaos book of knowledge on various chaotic rituals. One of them was how to bound, summon and control demon hosts. He would use this book to summon back Kerubael to imprison him in an underground prison in his mansion on Gudrun as a form of torture and punishment, giving him a clone body just to contain him there, before going back to his normal life as an Inquisitor of the Imperium of Men. Now we move to the final book. The third book of the Eisenhorn trilogy, known as Hereticus, is at the same time the shortest, but the one with the major level of involvement of Pontius Glaw. So again, we'll give a plot summary of the book, but we will focus majorly on the parts involving Glaw himself. The story resumes in 386 and 41. Phlebas Alessandro Rorken, the master of the Ordo Xenos in the Helican territory, makes contact with Gregor Eisenhorn for an important matter. Due to health concerns, Rorken isn't able to supervise the trial of the heretics on the planet of Durer, one of the planets reconquered in the Crusade for Ophidia, the one that was celebrated in the second book, and was now being audited for heretical activity as it was a territory just recently re-annexed to the Imperium of Men. He asked Eisenhorn to take his place as senior inquisitor of the delegation sent to Durer, sending one of his pupils that was recently elevated to inquisitorial rank, Bastian Verveuk. After a few days of court on Durer, which even by admission of Eisenhorn was one of the most boring endeavors he had ever undertaken, and Rourke owed him greatly for it, he would be informed by his own retinue that an heretic that had been believed dead for 50 years had appeared on the planet. Fade Turing. This heretic in particular had a debt with Eisenhorn and a member of his retinue. Fade Turing was the killer of Midas Betancourt, the best friend and pilot of Eisenhorn during the first book. Midas had been replaced in the retinue of Eisenhorn in the second book by his own daughter, that was born a month after he was killed, Medea Betancourt. Eisenhorn suspended the trial immediately, took his retinue, and while being followed by Paul Rassi, a fellow Inquisitor, and Bastian Verveuk, departed to chase the heretic, that had been found to be hiding on Durer's Polar Islands. After a battle in the old PDF listening station on the Polar Islands, the objective of Fade Turing in that frozen wasteland was revealed. A bunker was hidden on the island and was never found, and this bunker contained nothing else than 3 Chaos Warlord Titans. Turing had managed to bring in enough manpower and material to reactivate one of the ancient beasts, the Titan Cruor Vault. The battle turned into a cat-and-mouse chase, with Eisenhorn and his retinue trying to escape and survive the Titan's fury. Turing was now a danger for millions of people, not only Eisenhorn and his retinue. Eisenhorn and Rassi will try to cut the psychic connection of the Titan with the pilot using Eisenhorn's rune staff. But not only did not work, but it backfired, as they wanted to try and use the Null's power of Elizabeth Bekin to do it through the warp itself. She had the worst of it, pretty much being left brain dead by the whole affair. Bekin was the woman Eisenhorn loved, and he pretty much lost it. At first trying to charge at the Titan with his sword, and then, when the Titan had brought down the transport ship of Eisenhorn, which caused Eisenhorn himself to believe that his friend Medea Betancourt and Amos were killed in the crash, and with his friends either wounded or dead around him, he did it. He started repeating a rite from the Malum Codicium, and summoned into reality, releasing him from his host, none other than the demon Cherubile, ordering him to destroy the Titan. Cherubile obliged, and pretty much blew the Titan in half with an electrical psionic storm. Cherubile then turned on Eisenhorn himself. He was imprisoned for decades. He wanted vengeance. Eisenhorn tried to fight him off and avoid him as best as possible, but the demon was relentless. Given a diversion from the mad priest of the Polar Islands that kept briefly the demon at bay, Eisenhorn would reach Verveuk. He had been grievously wounded in the crash of the gun cutter as he was aboard, and was on the edge of dying. Eisenhorn used his body as an host for Cherubile, and created a demon host he could chain using the dying Inquisitor. After this, Eisenhorn and the surviving but wounded members of his retinue, except for Godwin Fischig, would flee the islands with the demon host, leaving the planet immediately with it before the Inquisition arrived. Now, things here can be skipped altogether. Not because they are bad, but because the large majority of the book is pretty much the same thing. Eisenhorn being hunted down by people that want to kill him. So I'll just give you the gist of it. Eisenhorn returned to his mansion on Gudrun, and imprisoned Cherubile again. Until one night the mansion he lived in was assaulted, the defenses being sent offline by an infiltrator in his own guard. A good chunk of his retinue and all of his servants will be killed, or grievously wounded in the assault, and he will flee and hide on the planet. He then will find out that it was not only to him that they aimed at, but they had already attacked and killed pretty much all people connected to Eisenhorn. As we learn later, some of them had survived thanks to the intervention of Gideon Ravenor and some good fortune on their side. But pretty much over 200 people were dead, thousands of civilians killed to get to them, with even entire hive hubs being blown up just to kill people connected to Eisenhorn. And as Eisenhorn will learn through interrogation of a captured member of his hunters, it was all done at the hands of Kanjar the Sharp.
This name is more of a meme than you imagine.
Not only him though, there was another name and another hunter for Eisenhorn, Maria Tarrey. We will discover who this woman was after the now fugitive Eisenhorn with the survivors of his retinue reached the city of New Gave, always on Gudrun. There they had to meet with Arlon Nail, but Eisenhorn had anticipated this would be a trap, and used the Malus Codicium to control the dead body of the commander of the mercenaries that had attacked the train he was traveling in the night before, to go to the place of the meeting in his stead. It is there that we will meet Maria Tarrey, in a cafe where Eisenhorn had to meet Nail. A trap was prepared, and the woman had brought with herself an entire execution squad to catch and kill Eisenhorn. Eisenhorn was kilometers away, and when the woman took off the rebreather of the man she had in front of her, she noticed that it was the body of Hetrick, the commander of the mercenaries that were sent to kill Eisenhorn. And it is here that we will learn what the correction between Maria Tarrey and Pontius Glaw truly was.
Maria Tarrey drew a plasma pistol and shot Hetrick through the chest. The Vasarines all around opened fire with their autoguns and las carbines. As my puppet was torn apart, I let go of the warp vortex that had been spinning in my mind ever since I had summoned it. It surged out of Hereticus' collapsing body and expanded, annihilating the Janissaries, Antipul's lounge, and the entire level 60 deck of Hive 4 in a radius of 50 meters. Mariah Teray was atomized. In the last milliseconds of her life, her mental shields collapsed in terror, and I got a precious snapshot into her powerful psychic mind. Enough to know that I had just annihilated Pontius Glaw's daughter.
To put it simply, Pontius Glaw was now free in his new body, and was killing everyone that still knew he existed. Remember, the Inquisition doesn't know. Eisenhorn kept him a secret. Pontius was working on his own plan while eliminating anybody that might try and stop him. Eisenhorn would also find out what they wanted from him. Other than him dead, obviously. Pontius knew that Quixos had the Malum Codicium, and if it was never recovered from his base, it was obvious that Eisenhorn had it. Pontius wanted the book.
I imagine Pontius Glaw now wants me dead even more than before. But they were after the Malus Codicium, you see. I learned that from her undefended mind. Glaw knew Quixos must have it, and once Quixos was dead, realized that it must be in my possession. He wants that book so much.
Do you know why?
I saw images of an arid world just before Mariah Teray died. A dried out husk where primeval cities lay buried under layers of ash. Glaw is after something there, and he needs the Codicium to help him.
After various events, really, if you want to know more, read the books. Eisenhorn would end up being reunited with the few survivors of his retinue and his old apprentice, now full Inquisitor, Gideon Ravenor. Ravenor would reveal that he was working with an elder Farseer that had seen the future. He knew that him and his friends would be attacked, and he helped how he could to save some of them. They met at the planet of Promodi, a planet that was confirmed to have been visited by Pontius weeks before. But nobody could understand why. Ravenor and his elder Farseer had understood why, and they used their psychers to create a seance to see what happened in the past on the planet. It is here that we will see Pontius Glaw in his new form for the first time.
I felt Ravenor reach out with his mind and fine-tune the coherence of the image. Just standing there beside him, I could feel how strong his mind had grown. My old pupil was frighteningly powerful. Suddenly the image resolved. 3 figures wading through the bayou's knee-deep water. One, a massive ogre with a blaster cannon, followed in the splashing wake of a sturdy male human dressed in beige komatama, his face hidden by a rebreather. This human was scanning the area with a handheld auspex. The third figure was beside him. It was tall, broad, and moved with a strange stiffness, its body partially draped with what looked at first like a cape of feathers. They weren't feathers, they were blades. Tongues of polished, sharpened metal interlaced into an armored garment. Beneath it I could glimpse a body of burnished chrome, duralloy and steel, a mechanical humanoid body of marvelous design. The work of Magos Geared Pure, I had no doubt. The late Geared Pure. This was Kanjar the Sharp, the man-machine, the living blade from the Elder Vision, Pontius Glaw. I could see his face. It was the face of a beautiful young man with a mane of curled hair, but the hair didn't move and the expression didn't alter from a curling smirk. It was a mask worked from gold, like the head of a noble gilded statue. I had seen the face before, in old records that showed Pontius Glaw in his prime.
Which now makes me wonder something. What the fuck was Bure thinking? Eisenhorn told him to give him a basic body with basic senses. Why the fuck did he make a fully articulated avatar of destruction with a bladed cape? Is Bure just the 40k version of Pio?
Okay, so, Bure, we're leaving to destroy Quixos and kill him for his heresies. Remember what we talked about? A basic servitor body with basic senses.
Got it, fully articulated, capable of combat, claws and a bladed cape.
No! Basic servitor body. Make it able to barely move around. Do you understand now?
Yes, all clear, Gregor. Trust me. So, about the Cape of Blades.
Anyway, Mechanicus Pio level idiocy aside, the seance will show that Pontius himself had another seance performed on the planet, showing an ancient and now completely disappeared city of chaos construction. Massive and awe-inspiring. The following runes that they had saw in the seance was part of the empire of a demon king. Pontius was after something of unimaginable power, and do you want to know how dangerous it is? Pontius Glaw, the funny orb man that by this point has killed millions with his mere existence, was after something so powerful that reality itself was in danger.
Then what can you tell me? You said that things had been revealed to you.
One of their kind has foreseen a great darkness ahead of us all. It is so abrupt and acute that it has twisted and altered the skeins of probability that the Elder read. It was revealed to him in a sequence of connected visions. One of those was the destruction of the distaff. When that came true, I was shaken. It proved the visions were not fanciful.
What else has he seen? I asked.
A living blade. A man-machine bestriding along that world and preparing to strike a blow that would speak human and elder blood alike.
He said.
After that, nothing.
I looked down at him. Nothing?
Nothing. That vision is the most distant thing he is now able to see. It's no more than 6 months from now. Beyond that, he has been unable to glimpse anything at all.
Why?
Because there is no future left to see.
Gideon and the Elder Farseer managed to translate the runes of their seance to understand the position of the planet Pontius was after. The planet of Ghoul. Now, once again here a lot of stuff happens once they depart to prepare to assault the planet and stop Glaw. Amos will translate more eldritch writing from the seance vision using the Malleus Codicium, but in doing so damned himself to chaos as he could not forget what he read. Receiving in secret the help of Kerubael, he would reveal to Eisenhorn that the planet was the tomb of a demon king, and had been the capital of his empire long before humans even existed as a species. His chaotic and apocalyptically powerful ship still lies on the planet. That is what Pontius is after, an artifact of chaos so powerful that it will annihilate everyone. Eisenhorn would reach the planet of Geganda, where the ship of his rogue trader friend, the Essene, needed to be repaired and prepared for the assault. He would once again meet Fishig, that had intercepted them after allying with Inquisitor Eldain and Ozma, telling them everything about Eisenhorn's heresies. Amos, using his unforgettable knowledge of the Malleus Codicium, would conjure Kerubael to help them escape. Eisenhorn would then bind him to Fishig after he was killed trying to end Eisenhorn, and would permanently make use of Kerubael as his own follower from then on, binding him with more runes to contain his power and volatile personality. Amos unfortunately died while they escaped. His last words to Eisenhorn is typical phrase that he used often from the first book, most perturbatory. And it is here that we finally arrive to Ghoul. The planet was a perfect spherical orb of pure darkness. You couldn't even tell it was there if not for the circle of darkness it projected around the stars.
Sorry, I'm out of jokes about orbs, so watch this clip.
We have to destroy the orb.
Destroy the orb? Don't you see? The orb is our lives now. To destroy the orb would be to destroy our very purpose, so if we wish to live long, meaningful lives, the orb must not be destroyed.
What if I use this dart?
When Eisenhorn and his forces, together with Inquisitor Gideon Ravenor and his own military kill teams deployed on the planet, it was chaos. They were aided by the Elder Farseer and 6 of his best aspect warriors, and they were battling the cultists and mercenaries working for Glaw in an incredibly symmetrical planet. Too symmetrical, to the point of being unnerving, with Glaw's forces that seemed to be teleporting around. Their teleporting was explained when Eisenhorn discovered that the planet was nothing but the entrance to the pocket dimension where the ship and the body of the dead Demon King were kept. He managed to force Kerubael to keep open one of the strange portals and launch himself inside with a member of his retinue, obviously followed by the now enslaved demon host. Eisenhorn at this point is fully a radical, his Puritan origins are completely gone. After having problems traversing the dimension they had entered, they ended up finding the Men of Glaw working on the transcriptions on the walls that compose the tomb itself, seemingly looking for something. And after battling them for a bit while they were looking to reach the top of the tomb, for the final time, Eisenhorn will find himself face to face with Pontius Glaw.
From the globe-lit tunnel we could make our way onto a massive plinth of dark onyx that extended from the edge of the inner wall. There was a block raised there, a polished tooth of dark green mineral 40 meters tall, set deep into the plinth. It was wound with carved spirals. Glow globes floated around it and tools and instruments lay at its foot. Pontius Glaw had been studying this discovery himself, but the noise of our violent entry had alerted him. He was waiting for us. He emerged from behind the standing block, calm, almost indifferent. His tall, gleaming machine body was as I'd remembered it from the auto-seance. The cloak of blades clinked as he moved. The ever-smirking golden mask smirked.
Gregor Eisenhorn,
he said softly.
The galaxy's most persistent bastard. Only you could scramble and slash and claw and crawl your way to me. Which, of course, is why I admire you so.
I stumped forward. I faced Glaw. He was broader than me and a good deal taller. His blade cloak jangled as he struck a perfectly articulated duralloy hand across the surface of the green block. Then he raised the same hand and held it up for inspection.
Magos Bure did a fine job, didn't he? Such a craftsman. I can never thank you enough for arranging his services. This is the hand I killed him with.
There is more than his blood on your hands, Glaw. Do you answer to that name now, or do you prefer to hide behind the title Khanjar?
Either will do.
Your daughter didn't take either of your names. He was silent. If I could get him angry, I could perhaps force an error.
Maria,
he said.
So headstrong. Another reason to kill you, apart from the obvious.
He was about to say something else, but I'd waited long enough. I blasted my will through the rune stuff and lunged forward, swinging my blade. The psychic blast knocked him back, and he half-turned, his cloak whirling out and turning Barbarisator aside with its multiple edges. His turn became a full spin, and I lurched back to avoid the lethal ham of his blade cloak. Gustine moved in, firing bolts of light that simply reflected off Glaw's gleaming form. Cherubel came in from the other side. Its searing attack scorched Glaw's metal, and I heard him curse. He slashed at Cherubel with his open hand, extending hook blades from slots in the fingertips. The hooks ripped into Cherubel's flesh, but it made no cry. It grappled with Pontius Glaw, psychic power boiling the space between them and flaring out in spasmic tendrils of light. The very air crisped and ionized. Glaw's dancing metal feet chipped flakes of onyx off the plinth beneath him. I tried to get in, to lend a blow in support of the demon host, but it was like approaching a furnace.
Glaw was fighting brutally. He was keeping at bay both the Demonos Cherubel and even the amplified psychic powers of Gregor Eisenhorn. Both of them were pummeling him, but he seemed to be strong enough to take both of them, pushing them back. When Cherubel charged Glaw again, something intercepted him in midair. Cherubel became locked in aerial combat with an incandescent figure, another demon host.
You don't think you are the only one to have a pet, do you?
Glaw jeered.
And my demon host is not restricted in its power like yours. Poor Cherubel. You've treated him so badly.
Eisenhorn charged Glaw again, managing to hit him in his golden mask and dent it. This royally angered Glaw, that charged Eisenhorn again with all his strength. Gustin, the member of the retinue of Eisenhorn that had followed him, tried to help when Eisenhorn was thrown to the side by the golden giant, shooting at Glaw with his lasgun. Glaw did a single pirouette, a move seemingly impossible for such a giant mechanical body, and his claw moved almost horizontally with the centrifugal force. Hundreds of razor-sharp blades whistled through Gustin, so fast, so completely that he didn't realize what had happened to him for a split second. Then a mist of blood puffed in the air. Gustin collapsed in pieces. Glaw seemed impervious to damage. Eisenhorn was fully outmatched. And finally, he was coming for the killing blow, laughing as he advanced against Eisenhorn. Staring death in the face, Eisenhorn charged him again, chipping his legendary sword, Barbarisator, for the fury with which he was hitting Glaw. He struck Pontius until he stopped laughing. In answer, Pontius Glaw unleashed a psychic blast that smashed Eisenhorn backwards, making blood spurt from his nose and mouth. He didn't fall. He wouldn't give Pontius Glaw that pleasure. But he was completely out of energies. An old man against an ancient and powerful evil. It is then that Pontius made his fatal and final mistake.
You'd have won by now if you'd had the book, I said, coughing the blood from my mouth.
What?
The book. The damned book. The Malus Codicium. That's what you were really after when you sent your hired murderers against me. That's why you tore my operation apart and killed everyone you could reach. You wanted the book.
Of course I did.
He snarled. I looked up at him. He would have unlocked the prize already. Done away with this endless, fruitless study. You'd simply have opened the tomb and taken the demon's chariot, long before we could ever get here.
Savor that little triumph, Gregor,
he said.
Your little Pyrrhic victory. By keeping that book from me, you have added extra months, years to my work. Israel's weapon will be mine, and you've made its acquisition so much harder.
Good, I said. He chuckled.
You're a brave man, Gregor Eisenhorn. Come on now. I'll make it quick.
His blades clinked. I suppose then, I added, I'd have been mad to bring it with me. He froze. With a shaking, bloody hand, I reached into my coat and took out the Malleus Codicium. I think he gasped. I held it out half open so he could see, and riffled the pages through with my fingers.
You foolish, foolish man!
He said, smiling. That's what I thought, I said. With one brutal jerk, I ripped the pages out of the cover.
No!
He cried. I wasn't listening. I fixed my mind on the loose bundle of sheets in my hands and subjected them to the most ferocious mental blast I could manage. The pages caught fire. I threw them up into the air. Glaw screamed with despair and rage. A blizzard of burning pages fluttered around us. He tried to grab at them. He moved like an idiot, like a child, snatching what he could out of the air, trying to preserve anything at all. The pages burned. Leaves of darkness billowing across the plinth, consumed by fire. He snatched a handful, tried for more, stamping out those half-burned sheets that landed on the ground. He wasn't paying any attention to me at all. Barbarizator tore into him so hard it almost severed his head. Electricity crackled from the rent metal. He rasped and staggered. The Carthian blade sang in my hands as I ripped it across his chest and shot at part of his cloak. He fell backwards, right at the edge of the plinth, his fingerhooks shrieking as they fought to get a purchase on the smooth onyx. I swung again, an upswing that rippled off his golden mask and sent it spinning out over the gulf. The interior of his head was revealed. The circuits, the crackling, fusing cables, the crystal that contained his consciousness and being, set in its cradle of links and wires. In the name of the holy god Emperor of Terra, I said quietly, I call thee Diabolus, and here deliver thy sentence. My own blood was dripping off Barbarizator's hilt between my double-handed grip. I raised the blade, and made the Eul Cair. The blade split his head and shattered the crystal into flecks of glass. Pontius Glaw's metal body convulsed, jerked back and fell off the edge of the plinth, down into the gulf, into the blackness of the Demon King's tomb, its cloak blades chiming.
Eisenhorn was now wounded and at the edge of death. He will be saved by Cherubile. The planet of Ghoul will be subjected to exterminatus under the command of Lord Admiral Olm Madortene, another old friend of Eisenhorn. And from that point, the story of Eisenhorn continued. The old Puritan Inquisitor gone, now an extremely radical being remained. And his fall to the radical ideology, like millions of deaths, and the almost total destruction of reality, can be attributed to Pontius Glaw himself. In the end, he was right. He will see Eisenhorn cross the line and become what he swore to destroy at all costs. And now, before closing the story, let's see what Lexicanum got wrong. First of all, you have to know that the Eisenhorn books excel in a specific field of 40k, which is world building. The world is incredibly detailed, even too much in some places, and the characters are heavily fleshed out. So, when I find out that Lores Vibben, the woman that dies in the battle at Processional 212, and that was a good friend of Eisenhorn, has a wiki page that is completely empty, you can understand that I am most perturbed. And speaking of Processional 212, the cryogenic tomb is not mentioned anywhere in the wiki of Eisenhorn, nor in the wiki of Pontius Glaw, nor in the wiki talking of the first book of the trilogy itself, Xenos. 12,000 nobles died there to try and give Pontius a body, plan that in the end was even aborted, so they died for nothing. I will say that warrants a mention. The original date of when Pontius Glaw died is not mentioned in the wiki page of Pontius Glaw himself, when it is literally mentioned in chapter 17 of the Book of Xenos that he was dead at that point from 212 years. And as the date of the events of the first book is the year 240 and 41, that reliably places date of original death in 28 and 41. The planet where Pontius Glaw died, Lamsaroth, is not mentioned anywhere, nor does it have its own Lexicanum page. Here instead we enter in a weird territory. As I explained, the entirety of the Glaw family was indeed corrupted by chaos in Xenos, even before Eisenhorn and Commodus Voke started investigating them directly. It is believed that they were all swayed to chaos by Pontius himself. Now, the members of House Glaw are barely mentioned, but it is weird that Uricel Glaw, the member of the Glaw family that promised Pontius a new body, has a wiki page that is completely empty in English, and yet he has lore in the Deutsch version of Lexicanum. Psyker Esaradon, one of the escaped alpha-level Chaos Psykers from the procession on Trajan Primaris, and that caused entire slaughters in the Hive because he was mind-controlling hundreds of people to attack the Arbites and Eisenhorn, and trust me, this guy was almost impossible to bring down. Even Eisenhorn almost died multiple times against him. Is not mentioned anywhere on Lexicanum, if you don't count the fact that he has a Deutsch Lexicanum page. Because why not? Inquisitor Lyco 2, that helped him escape Trajan Primaris, has a wiki page that is completely empty. Clan Heretic, which is the commander of the Vessorin Janissary group hired by Glaw to go on Gudrun, and assault Eisenhorn mansion and kill him to recover the Malus Codicium, is not mentioned anywhere on Lexicanum. The guy had a duel with Eisenhorn on top of a train during a snow blizzard. In fact, the only reason Eisenhorn won that duel, as Heretic was faster, stronger, and more able in melee combat than Eisenhorn, was that having lost his sword, Eisenhorn spat on the honor of the duel and shot Heretic. I don't blame him, it is pure survival, but he was also the meat puppet Eisenhorn used to kill the daughter of Pontius Glaw, so why not mention him? The planet of Promodi, which is where Ravenor and Eisenhorn will discover the true intentions of Glaw with the help of an Eldar Farseer, has a wiki page that is completely empty. But once again, it has a complete wiki page, in Deutsch.
Kudos to the Germans, they keep their wikis straight to the point.
The wiki of the Book of Hereticus mentions that Ravenor had made a deal with the Eldari, but removing that it doesn't mention that an Eldar Farseer was together with Ravenor on Promodi, he straight up lies when it mentions that it was Ravenor that saw the future and recognized that there was no future to see in 6 months. No, it wasn't him, it was the Farseer. Ravenor believed this prediction only when he tested it trying to reach some of his old friends of the retinue and had to save them from annihilation at the hands of the Janissaries sent by Glaw, confirming that the Farseer was indeed seeing what was going to happen. And this is the weirdest one. While the planet of Ghoul is mentioned in the Lexicanum page of the 3rd book of the trilogy, Hereticus, it is not mentioned on the wiki of Eisenhorn, nor the wiki of Pontius Glaw. Come on guys, it is where Eisenhorn killed Pontius, and where Pontius itself died. At least mention it. It even has its own wiki page. There is literally no reason to not mention it. And now a little addendum that some people might appreciate. The entire Eisenhorn trilogy, and even some of the short stories that you can find as bonuses, as I read the Eisenhorn Omnibus to make this video, has a little problem. It is not correct on a timeline level. You see, the trilogy and even the short story mention various times both the Tyranids and Lord Solar Macarius. Now, as you can expect, after making a video of an hour on Lord Solar Macarius, I have become quite an expert on his persona, history, but especially the dates of when his story takes place. The trilogy of books of Eisenhorn starts in 240 and 41, and ends in the last book in 392 and 41. The problem is that in various places, the Eisenhorn trilogy mentions that Macarius did not only already exist during the events of the books, but he was in fact already dead. In fact, in the short story that is placed in the Omnibus at the end of the 2nd book, Backlot for a Crown Additional, there was a circus on Gudrun where for a penny you could touch the real and completely genuine shin bone of Macarius. Which you will need, because this short story takes place in 355, and Macarius was in fact very much alive. Again, watch my video for more. And not only that, this isn't the most egregious mistake. The other mistake is that this series does in fact mention the Tyranids as a species. Again, the Tyranids weren't renowned as a threat and weren't even named before the fall of Tyran, when they first assaulted a planet and destroyed it, and were classified as a threat when it was discovered. It is why they are called Tyranids, because the first planet they destroyed was the planet of Tyran Primus. And this happened in 745 and 41, very much over 400 years after the final book of the trilogy of Eisenhorn, Hereticus. Every edition, including the English one of the trilogy and Omnibus, suffer from these errors of continuity, because they are referencing stuff that by the timeline of these books still didn't happen to begin with. Every version of the books suffers from this mistake, but the Italian version.
Wait, what?
Yes, you see Pio, the trilogy's release in Italy was handled by an acquaintance of mine, Nicola Sacco, which is an Italian 40k lore YouTuber and at the time was the editor of the release of these books. He is a lore master of high level like us, to put it into perspective. He noticed the mistakes in the trilogy of stuff that was included when it still didn't happen to begin with. Looked up and found out that it was a confirmed mistake by Dan Abnett, and decided to correct it. Removed the mentions to it and made the book lore compliant. More lore compliant than even the original was. In fact, little surprise. We asked the astropath ourselves. Here is what he said.
Ciao, sono Nicola Sacco. Su internet sono conosciuto come l'astropate o Nick Astropate.
Oltre a creare contenuti di divulgazione su Warhammer, sono curatore editoriale di Panini Comics, la casa editrice che possiede la licenza di traduzione Black Library in Italia. Stiamo ripubblicando l'intera trilogia di Eisenhorn e con la recente pubblicazione di Xeno ne ho approfittato per effettuare delle piccole correzioni. Nel romanzo veniva citato Macarius in qualità di Lord Solar, benché Xeno si svolgesse tra il 240 e il 241 millennio 41, oltre 100 anni prima della nascita del personaggio, stabilita nel 1999 da Gav Thorpe su White Dwarf 240. Un errore capitato anche in altre pubblicazioni dell'epoca, poiché ai tempi GW non aveva archivi facilmente condivisibili tra tutte le parti della compagnia. Alcune informazioni, per forza di cose, si perdevano negli angoli bui di una rivista. Ho quindi deciso di correggere questo errore sostituendo ovunque Macarius con un più generico Lord Solar. In più, ho anche eliminato la menzione dei tirannidi, una svista di cui ha discusso anche Dan Abnett stesso nell'edizione illustrata e commentata di Xeno. Volendo essere un buon editor, nel corso del tempo ho corretto e correggerò anche altre piccole cose qua e là nelle edizioni italiane dei romanzi. Correzioni che saranno comunicate sperando che possano essere inserite in future ristampe in lingua inglese. Un saluto e un ringraziamento a Pontius e Pio per avermi dato occasione di spiegarvi personalmente questa cosa.
And do you know what this means, Pio?
New counter?
New counter. So, Italians win again. Italy produces some of the best lore masters on the internet, for some reason. We might be the nerdiest country on the planet.
Yeah, we're even better at lore than Brazil.
Why Brazil? The book was written in England.
Because I hate Servo Pio. I don't see the Brazilians casting him out yet. And even then, England is already suffering for their sins. They produce James Corden, and even they can't stand him.
Fair. And so ends the story of Pontius Glaw, a long-dead heretic looking to regain a body and control over his own destiny. That went from a malevolent artifact, to a prisoner, to a galaxy-level threat. But in the end, had this victory. He forced Gregor Eisenhorn to use the same warp taint that he so hated, just to defeat him. Pontius Glaw died, but at the same time, at least with Gregor Eisenhorn, he won. And even if you don't care, I reread the entire Eisenhorn trilogy for this video, and here is my opinion on it. Fuck Inquisitor Golesh Constantine Pepos Eldane. Uber Amos was the MVP of the entire series, and fuck Gregor Eisenhorn for choosing Bekin, the goth girl. When Medea Betancourt was there, a literal dark-skinned tomboy combat pilot ready for the taking. I can understand the attraction for a goat like Bekin, but my man, you have that and you still look the other way? You truly are a monster. Gregor Eisenhorn indeed is a fucking heretic in the eyes of my Ordo.
What Ordo?
The Ordo Tomboius.
I can see now why you decided to name the channel after Pontius Glaw. You guys are more similar than I had realized.
We are both erudite masters of our own branches of lore with a charming personality, good looks, even better avatars, and refined tastes for the best things.
No, you are both assholes of apocalyptic proportions.